Welcome to This Week in Pulling, the show that brings you all the action from the world of tractor and truck pulling. I'm Dan Mayer, joined by Jeremy and Miles Krieger, and each week we'll dive into the latest highlights, breaking news, and behind-the-scenes stories from the sport we all love. From upcoming events, standout performances, and the rich history that shaped pulling into what it is today, we've got you covered. So buckle up, This Week in Pulling starts now. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Pulling. My name is Dan Mayer, and I am joined once again by my good friends, Jeremy and Miles Krieger. Good evening, guys.
Evening, y'all. Number seven.
Number 7 already.
I can't believe it. Wow. Time has absolutely flown by. I hope you guys will forgive me tonight. I have caught a case of the Ohio Valley crud here, Derby week in Louisville, and I am sounding like Richard Sturban from the Oak Ridge Boys here tonight. So my apologies sincerely. But we're here to talk truck and tractor pulling, and we're going to have a great time here tonight as we dig into some super stock tractors, huh, boys?
Absolutely. And just so I'm clear, that's the deep voice guy with the Oak Ridge Boys, right?
Papa, Papa, Mao. Right. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah, super stocks this week, guys. It's going to be awesome show. Awesome show.
Absolutely. Well, as we do every week, before we get into the top 5 as voted on by the pullers, Dan, let's talk a little bit about how we arrived at this point.
Yeah, so the driver rankings, full pull driver rankings, voted on by the fellow competitors. Competitor cannot vote for themselves or a teammate or teammates if they've got a couple different teammates. And this whole deal here is based on driver ability, not on equipment. So the other competitors are going to vote and say, hey, I give this puller, so many points. So your number 1 is going to be worth 5 points, 4 points, and so on and so forth, right down to 1 point. And the one with the most points, that's our number 1 ranked driver here in super stock. Now, super stock, a little bit different than the other classes. We've lumped them all together. We've lumped the super stock open, the late supers, as well as the super stock diesels all together into one.
Boo.
And came up with 1. So we'll see. Maybe for next year, we'll change that up a little bit, but we'll see how that goes. So, and there you can go next week. We're going to go right into mini rods next week as we start to wind things down here. Super stock, diesel 4-wheel drives, and then the unlimiteds there. And then guys, it's almost time to go pulling.
Absolutely. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Is that okay with you guys?
I'm ready.
All right, starting with number 5, as elected by Ackerley, Texas, the Blake Graves, and the ever popular and very legendary red horse. What can you say, fellas?
Yeah, another tough runner right there. We're going to start right off with a diesel super stock to get us rolling here in our rankings. And, well-deserved, the red horse team. I myself, I had them in my top 5 here. So, what about you, Miles? What'd you think of that pick?
Well, I love Stan and Steve very much. I think those guys have been such instrumental guys. When you think about carrying the class, when numbers were down, they supported it very heavily and have continued to make the trip from West Texas to come and pull. And I think that commitment is huge. And they have continued to be very, very competitive and fight in that super stock class. Going to miss them this summer, with all truth and true transparency. You think about them not being able to probably be with us for most of the summer as they send the tractor over to Europe. But obviously, Stan and Steve, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. And I think if you were to put those guys into your top 5, it makes perfect sense to have them in that group.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
And what an opportunity to take that tractor overseas, too. I mean, yeah, I understand missing a lot of the season, but what an unbelievable opportunity they're going to have to be able to pull over there.
Yes, they're taking a couple 2-wheelers, too, I think.
Perfect.
Yeah, it sounds like they're really looking forward to this trip here. And, who knows, maybe we'll see them back there. Probably Bowling Green, I would probably say, is usually takes a couple months, doesn't it, to get once you get back? And
it should be It should be about 30 to 35 days, of sailing, and then a little bit of cargo load off of the transporter over onto a train, and then from the train to Texas and wherever they catch it from there, on a truck. So, process with the Green Streaks when they went over to Amsterdam was about 35 to 40 days from its start when they picked it up in Washington to when it arrived in Ahoy, and a little bit faster on the way back. So maybe they can get back a little bit sooner, but I'm guessing just based off of that June time frame, we probably don't see them until early August. Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah, I knew he had some experience with that, Miles, so I was just kind of curious. I remember one or the other was quicker. It was either going over or coming back, but you said coming back was the quicker part, huh?
Yep. Coming back was the faster route for them for sure. So obviously, Stan and Steve are in that number 5 position. I think it's awesome for us to get ready to go ahead and reveal number 4 tonight in our super stock rankings. We bring our first alcohol tractor now to the group of our 5 who were chosen by their peers. Mr. John Strickland, the Galat team, based out of North Carolina, with Mr. Earl Wells, of course, and a lot of the effort and maintenance work being done by GMS and Brent Payne and his team out of Ohio. So, guys, let's talk about John, a multiple-time champion in this division in the Superstock Open side.
Absolutely, and Earl Wells and his team don't do anything halfway. Excellent equipment, absolutely the best of the best. And it just seems like from an A to B perspective, when this tractor hooks up and goes, it is a force to be reckoned with literally every time he shows up somewhere. And you never can count him out, just when you think he might, hit a bump in the road here and there and you can kind of forget or look away, he'll bite you. And he does that from time to time. But John Strickland and the Galat tractor are definitely, in my opinion, a force to be reckoned with and very deserving of the top 5 nod here tonight.
Yeah, and we saw that, this past summer with this tractor, they hit their stride again and, right back where they belong, right at the top of the class there, and all summer long there as kept rolling along there with that tractor. And, new light super this year, that was kind of, they got rid of the other tractor, the other heavy tractor, and brought that light super in and kind of working the bugs out of that deal. And that's going to be exciting here the next, year or two here, how, with Holt with the mini rod, is he going to stick with that or is he going to follow Dad here? We'll see how that works out here.
Absolutely. So John Strickland in the number 4 position.
All right. Well, we're going to move right along here. Number 3 spot here voted by the other super stock competitors.
Here comes the king of smoke, Edson Lane, the red line sweeper.
Well, what can you say right there? Esden Lane voted number 3. The guy's been there, done that, and done it again. Esden Lane with that red line fever. Congratulations.
Yeah, he's forgotten more about Superstock pulling than the 3 of us know put together. And you got to think, like, how many people are named after this guy? I was thinking about that the other day. Like, there's nothing like, yes, you're the king of smoke and you are a legend in our sport, but I think it's the ultimate sign of, you've made it when pullers are naming their sons after you. And how many Esdens are there out there? I think there's at least 4 or 5.
Yeah, sure. You heard Alan say it there. Here comes the king of smoke, and something that he definitely warranted and earned over the course of that time frame, and has stuck really to his roots. Hasn't really changed in overabundance of his approach and what he does, and longevity has sort of been the problem over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. Just being able to get the tractor to stay able to run at the level. It's not a problem to get it to run at that level of competitiveness. It's a problem to try to keep it running, which is what several of those guys in the Superstock diesel side have kind of been starting to see and face. So Esden is very, very formidable opponent. And I think when you think about his time in the light Superstock class, jumping in there as well and what he did, he can pretty well pull anything you put him in the seat of.
Absolutely.
And you talk about the light super. That's the big news for this year is he's coming back, to the light super class, and the last guy to win light super class with a diesel. So yeah, that's going to be great to see how that all works out there for Eston. But yeah, congratulations to Mr. Lane, as he'll be ranked number 3 here tonight.
All right, so let's go on into our next one. Number 2 here tonight. Number 2. Number 2 here tonight, none other than the pride of Petersburg, Indiana, right there across 74 on your way to Illinois, Mr. Kent Payne, and that Super Rooster. And I think, fellas, one of the most humble guys in the sport. You know, not real flashy, but always very thankful and very humble and very proud of his accomplishments in the sport. But always one tough cookie for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with that and utter that same sort of thought process. I think the dynamic of him and Sandy together is the part that I love the most about that Super Rooster tractor. And, you know, she is with him every step of the way, and she knows how to work on that tractor. She knows how to tear that tractor down, and she can help him in many, many facets of it. So very deserving person to be in this top 5 as well. And you think about the success again for what he did in 2025 even, or in 2024 even, and winning in a Super Stock Open class, and also being so competitive in the Super Stock diesel side, one of just a few to really step over into that outside comfort zone of the diesel side and run and show that he could be there. And then the Duel of the Fuels, he's been one of the most consistent guys to really prove himself and be in that hunt at Louisville as well. So very, very deserving.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, and Terry, you know, or Ken, I should say, with the approach of, you know, being there at the end of the season, you know, and that's one thing that they have, you know, consistency with this tractor. And that's one thing that you see out of that Super Rooster team every year is, you know, when the end of the season comes, they are going to be there. And, you know, don't miss too many, you know, point shows due to breakage. You know, they know what they got to do, and man, they do it very well.
Agreed. So, you know, without any further ado, I'm sure there are some folks sitting here now with their countdowns, and they've put their top 5 lists together. They know a driver that needs to be here into the top 5. And let's go ahead and reveal our number 1 Super Stock driver as voted on by the pullers. Coming your way now.
Nobody's surprised.
I'm quite confident that everybody had this gentleman in their top 5, and I am quite confident that everybody had him maybe even in the top 3. I just don't think you have a discussion about current day or even historical Super Stock polling last 2.5 to 3 decades where you just do not have a discussion about this man right here, and Terry Blackburn. So Terry, congrats, and certainly Terry and Josh do a lot of work on the tractor, but getting in the seat, both of those gentlemen, Terry and Josh Blackburn, have been very, very tough. And so, you know, my 2 cents on that is that gentleman deserves to be in the hunt here, no question about it. So Dano and Jeremy, let's hear from you guys.
No, absolutely, Miles. I would echo exactly what you said. I don't think you can have this conversation from a from a longevity perspective and from a success perspective. Like, this guy's got to be at least in the top 3 without question. And then you talk about the innovations and the things that they've done, not only behind the wheel, but, you know, in the dyno room and you know, building turnkey tractors. And that's only going to add to, you know, how good you are behind the wheel and on the track. So I think the man is definitely a brutal force. There's no question about that, and very deserving to be in the number 1 spot here tonight.
And you talked about the longevity part of it. I mean, you know, late 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. I mean, just keep going. You know, and the guy, you know, doesn't matter if it's lights, heavies, he's right there in the mix. And
yep.
You know, and that's the most. To me, that's the most impressive part. Is just, you know, all these years and still being able, you know, right there at the top of the class. That's just very, very impressive.
Absolutely. So number 1 here tonight is Terry Blackburn. So congratulations.
Yeah, as has been the tradition, guys, with this show, as we get a chance to reveal these rankings, we've also been blessed to have the opportunity to talk to some of these guys who have been selected to be into the top 5. And we do have, I think, the opportunity to discuss some things with Terry tonight. So hopefully Terry is able to join us. And sorry, Terry, for making you wait there, sir, so patiently in the waiting room as we are running a little bit late. But so glad to have you. And from the 3 of us and from the peers of your class, congrats on being ranked number 1 in the super stock division.
Yeah, that's quite an honor. That was a good bunch there. There's a lot of good super stock pullers. If you had, every week you'd have a different. I'm just, shocked. Everyone, thinks, that, we do great things. We try the best we can. We got a great shop, and Josh is in there working, and he pushes me along. And I know you're talking about longevity. I'm on my 7th week. I got a new knee put in, so I'm kind of getting wore out here too.
Ooh, okay.
Well, good.
So be all ready to go for pulling season then.
But I need some new parts too once in a while. Yeah, I'll be ready to go for pulling season. It's come along real good.
Good to hear.
So the math on that tells me that you waited till right after farm show to go ahead and have that put in, right?
Yeah, it's been a problem for quite a while, and I tore some meniscus right after Christmas, and I went in, and the doctor said it shot, do that, and so we made the appointments, and it just ended up there booked out that far, be right after the farm show. So it was March 11th when they did it. And so it's come along real good. If I had to drive today, I could do it.
Is it the clutch knee or the brake knee?
The brake side.
Okay.
Brake side. All right.
But yeah, I'm getting around. But
good.
Very good.
Well, Terry, we're glad to have you here. Talk a little bit about your beginnings into the sport. Like we've discussed longevity, but I don't think I've ever really heard, what got you, how did the pulling bug bite you, so to speak, and how did you get into the sport all those years ago?
Well, we started the 460 International. Back then we worked out of, that's our 66 there. But, a lot of those years, and we just thought it was neat, racing, we had cars and motorcycles trip, and just for fun, they weren't like, they were pretty, but back then, car would 13s and the motorcycle 12 second quarter. So it wasn't like real slow, but
right.
We started out with that, with a 460, and just something as simple as put 15 pounds of boost to it with a little T turbo and 2-barrel car. And we went out, we won the first pull. It was a bad pull. Back then in the super stock class, you could run, alcohol 78 gas. First one was gas. And we won like about 6 inches. And that started it. We looked after that. Then we had quite a fan there where we're just trying to figure out what we're doing, and having a lot of problems. And when we built that 686, come around, by 85, that looked pretty good, and we got that running good. But it took a while to get to that point.
Fantastic.
Then after that, we progressed up, just growing, and Josh started for me. We went to school at CNC. He's been without him, be doing all this. He keeps my toes, keeps me going. Great job, shop, and he manages the whole shop, and I do my thing. And we good time. Sometimes trying to get things done. Dyno in the house. We learned so much, on tuning these tractors, and seeing what works. And, getting in the fine. which before we pretty much just get the data loggers helped, quite a few years ago when they, come out, really see what's going on, with your pressure and all that. And the dyno, it's really got, made a big step forward on all our customers run. We running that all the time. Every got running them. And you learn quite a bit, but everybody different setup. Things to try, and the more you things like that, the more you do it. It's like pulling. There's the more track you go to, you just get fine tuned, get to know your tractor.
Now, Terry, taking a step back here, we take a look here at the 7140. Where did the slow ride come into things? I mean, because it early on didn't have a name on the side of the tractor, and then all of a sudden, the early 90s there, we saw the slow ride come in. What was behind all of the the naming of it?
Well, that was the year we were real late in our parts we needed we built a motor. We went to previous tractor 5, 7, and 9. We had max sheet metal on it. It's pretty much that 686 that he had on there earlier. We changed the metal and beefed things, but a 3-tool system, and we ran 5 9 with it. Well, then we thought we could make an inter series motor good. We should try it in a bigger motor. We built a 400 series motor, and that was the tractor there. We didn't have the side shields. The next year we had. That was the first year that we put it together.
Okay. And did you just like that song?
Yeah, see, that's it. What the HBO's painted. Yeah, it was. The reason I aimed at that, I do like the song because, and that was fast, and this was compared to drag racing, so that was
Nice.
Yeah, I was always curious where that it always came from there. If it was with the song or was it? But yeah,
drag racing.
Makes perfect sense.
That explains it.
We got to give a shout out to Molly for the throwback shirts. By the way, I had mine on, and when I saw Mayor had his on, I went and changed and put a different throwback on because I didn't want to be his twin. But Molly made those throwback shirts a couple years ago, and he and I both had to have one. But Terry, I guess my question for you is actually I've got a couple, but I'll start with this one. Jeremy and I have very minimal mechanical ideas of what's going on. Our father, we love him very much, but his way of making things work was to call Joe Schindler, which was our local mechanic. Where does all of your background come for you to know how to do all this stuff, and then also to be able to get into the shop and make these parts created? I mean, I realize Josh has an understanding of the CNC machines, and he went to school to do that. But you can make all the stuff in the world, but if you don't know how to make it work, it doesn't matter how you make it in the shop. You got to do something with it.
A lot of times around Josh, we thrown out around. I'm telling you, work that. No, we done that pretty much. And it's just a super idea, and we've gone with it. And we both work together. Basically been there and done that. We do things, and you just keep learning. When you first start, 90% try doesn't, and you keep working like the next keeps getting hit. Now it's getting down where it's like 90% do try. And just looking at, when I go to like the PRI, whatever, I see parts that are vehicles, like how could we implement that in the work? Yep. And things like that. See something really neat, that work in anything that, and just try to do that.
Sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, Josh, things look good. He's real that way. He was a great artist. Went to high school in drawing, and knew he could really, I can't stick figure, and that'd be it. The CNC, he could draw and use the CAD systems and draw and really make it look really, really pleasing. And I'm thankful for he can do that kind of thing. And got the ideas. I'll write it up, make a cartoon of what I want, and give it to him, and then he'll make it look. That's how we do it.
Nice. Well, you got to start somewhere. Well, Terry, here's my question. I've always kind of wondered, you being a driver, but you also being a businessman, how do you toe the line between showing up at a pull and doing your job behind the seat, but then also making your customers successful at the same time?
Well, everybody's got the same stuff. Our motor, all our light motors are all the same. Pistons, camshaft, every, and basically drive it. And a lot of people they watch me the way I drive it. You got to have that skill when to give it throttle the most. You can't come in the hole. You know when to do that, and know how to hook it up coming out of the hole. And reading the track, and sometimes it's just the way it is. Sometimes you're early and it's good late, and vice versa. And but yeah, everybody's got a game, and I try coaching them, and nobody has a problem. We pull in, like, scout that we're there. We all go really well, and most of the diesel guys, tip my hat to them. They always, they never, alcohol don't long, but those guys have a problem, and they never had a problem. They never gave me any crap. Top, and I have a lot of respect for guys too, because we've all been in this a long time. Wanting the same stuff, and sometimes things the way you want, but I think both fuel getting pretty competitive, which I see, and they don't running down like that. Well, it makes a good show. Getting the both alcohol together like we used to.
Understood. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Now, Terry, how did the hook up with Mike Chiswick go? I mean, there's a guy that ran pro stock tractors for a bunch of years. You were a super stock puller. How did that? We know the result. I mean, the result is just amazing. What you guys have done, but how did you guys come together and form this super team? What was the? Was it just by coincidence, or was it?
Mark Gordon tires. He, obviously did tires back in the day on the pro stock. He was wanting to that because just doing a lot of work, and I went on Mark and Brian's alcohol, and he talked Mike, "Do you build one?" And so he did. He built one, and the day we took it to a pull, make it because Debbie went in the labor. We were going to the pull, and he was there, and Cody was born. So that was the first run track we made with that tractor. Considered it was like super, and then it just evolved from there. Got build more, build a trailer, take a load, and Brian drive and Mike they a lot of pull. with those.
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's been fun.
We definitely want to commend you. I mean, obviously, your longevity, as we talked about in this sport, it's been nothing short of fantastic as you continue to kind of be one of the beacons. And I often talk about the Mount Rushmores of pulling, and you know, in my vision and in my world of the super stock Mount Rushmore, you've got to be one of the guys that's in consideration to be there and be etched right in the side of that mountain or that wall. So obviously, you make it look easy, regardless of if you're driving a super stock alcohol tractor with the Cummins, or if you jump right into the light, or if it's the six shooter or whatever it be, you seem to just be able to jump right in and go. So again, Terry, congrats from us and for those of us that get a chance to watch you make it look so easy.
Hey, appreciate that. It's a long road. I'm still blessed, saying still able to go and do that. And you know, yeah, I don't go to work, love, and expect to ever work as long and happy. But yeah, I'm still, as long as they make me, fix me.
For sure. So yeah,
Congratulations, Terry, and thank you again for jumping on here tonight. We'll let you get back, and we'll see you down the road somewhere.
Hey, thank you.
yes, thanks a lot.
The Krieger smoke has been laid behind my speakers.
Well, there you go, guys. Top 5 ranking here in Super Stock. And once again, thanks to Terry Blackbird for joining us here tonight. And so now the portion of the program, guys, what did you guys have for your top 5s?
You know, I don't know. I'm conflicted here because I felt like I have a pretty decent pulse on what I would have picked, and I missed it here. Like I'll be honest with you. I had Terry Blackburn in there at number 1, but I had Colin Ross in my top 5. I had Esden Lane, I had Kent Payne, and I also had Travis Schlaubaugh in my conversations. And again, I feel it very difficult to just pick, you know, opens and smokers and forget the lights, like, you know, the Larry Phillipses of the world, the Marcus Wedelsons of the world, the Spiegelbergs of the world are all screaming at me in my head thinking, okay, so, you know, I had some honorable mentions there, but I will say that this week was a really tough week for me, but that's where I landed. What about you guys?
Miles?
Yeah, I you know, I guess for me, I appreciate anybody that voted, and I will absolutely support the 5 that are on that list.
For sure.
I think if you truly are evaluating drivers, I think Colin Ross has to be in this group. I just do. And that's not taking anything away from anybody else. That's just plain and simple the body of work over the course of the last 5 to 7 years. The wins that he had. Don't get me wrong. The dude's got an amazing tractor, but he's got to drive it. And that's important, and so, I think we've learned as well that driving that tractor isn't easy. I think, his dad trying to step back in, or his sister from time to time, like Colin has figured it out. He knows how to drive that tractor. And I hope that Jody gets to drive some this summer. And if Lily decides to, after the baby is born, to come back out and do it again sometime, then that's awesome as well. But for the time when Colin's in that seat, he's doing a good job driving. And so for me, I had him in my top 5. And quite honestly, I have him very close to the top. I don't know how you differentiate him and Terry. And so, we can call that one a draw. Additionally, I had Kent Payne in my top 5. I was hovering towards the Blagraves in my top 5. And I also had Jeff Hurt in my top 5. So not to say anything about Esden. No difference there. Certainly Kent Payne and Sandy, I love them, and I would put them in that group, and John Strickland as well, with where he's been. I think he has proven he can drive the wheels off of a super stock open tractor. So I had kind of 6 or 7 that I was circling back and forth and kind of trying to decide. Definitely Larry Phillips, Brandon Phillips were in my group of people I was considering. And what do you do there? Travis Schlaubaugh is definitely somebody who I was considering. And it's just not an easy task. I mean, there's a lot to be said of who really makes this thing look so easy. Another guy who I think drives the wheels off of a light super stock is Jacob Fuquay when he's driving a tractor. And so don't see him as regularly as I would like to, of course, on a lot of the circuits, but when he's out and running, he's in the hunt. So not to mention I
had Bobby Jones in that conversation too. The field sobriety machine, another tough runner any given day.
A couple guys from Kansas that run some cases that probably weren't some light super stock side as well. And just a lot of really tough, putting those 5 and lumping them all together. I mean, I guess if I were going to circle it and settle on it, Colin and Terry are in there. I had Jeff Hurt in there. I had Kent and Sandy in there, and then who's number 5? Blagraves, Strickland, Travis. We can fight all day long about it, and I'm okay with that, because I think those guys all do a phenomenal job, and I have no problems with any of them being in the hunt. So, I think when things align and when people are able to do what they're doing with their equipment, and you don't have to consider horsepower, and you don't have to consider who's hooking to the tractor, other than the driver itself. Esden obviously has to be somebody who many people would circle to. That dude he's golden. So shame on the full pull folks for making us do this.
Well, that's where that pool is so large. And that's what I did. I kind of made my top 5 lights, my top 5 Elke, and then diesel. But the 2 that I had that weren't in the top 5 were Colin and Brian Schrammick. I had Brian Schrammick in there for the top 5. And, another guy that, good to see him back and running super stock, been running the light tractor here and, stepped on the pro stock too this past summer. But, that pool is just so large, and trying to wither it down is just, like you said, it's just impossible to, everybody's going to have their, who they, and then like Jeremy said, you got the light super stock guys are, on this shoulder going, well, what about us, and then you got the, so it's like, yeah.
Well, maybe next year we add 2 more weeks to this, and we have all diesels, all lights, and all Alkies.
There we go. Yeah. Make it a little easier on us, because that was pressure packed right there.
Brutal, absolutely brutal.
No, they think about each of those, each of those groups. They deal with. Terry makes it look easy because he can jump from one to the next to the next to the next, and he seems to make it look seamless. But I think there would be a challenge for somebody to jump from one to the other and make it look that much easier. So, trying to lump them all together, I think there's a little bit of a challenge to it. I think driving a diesel tractor is definitely different than driving an alcohol tractor. And I think when you are trying to utilize the finesse of what you've got to do on the starting line with either one of them, I think it's a challenge. And, I think at the end of the day, I think there's a super stock diesel driver who really warrants the consideration of being in this top 5 consideration. I think he's a guy, if he ran the full circuit, he's in my top 5, and his name is Brandon Hunt. There's no question about it. Brandon Hunt is one of my top 5 if he goes out and can run the whole deal. But I did not put him in because in this I was trying to consider points tractors that run the full deal as what I think the drivers who were evaluating this would have done similarly. So, I think Brandon really fits in there and would be somebody who's right in the, off the bat. So very, very difficult to sift through all of these. I certainly give kudos to the folks that did vote. I would love to know, how they evaluated it. Like, how did they settle on their 5? And what am I missing, or what did I miss? And how truly do you evaluate these guys? Because I'm not at every event, and so I get to watch them at the Bowling Greens and the Tomas and the big tracks that we know kind of what to expect. And some of those other events, maybe it requires some different driving that I haven't witnessed in some instances. So again, a lot of fun and a lot of great time to be able to discuss this. And certainly in the super stock division, there are some just fantastic drivers.
Without question. And we want to know who your top 5 was. Like, make sure you share with us, send us some messages, post to the page. Let us know who you picked and why. We'd love to know, who you had in your top 5. And I want to say thanks to all the folks that do send me messages every week. I get some Snapchats and some Facebook messages from just random folks out there telling me who their top 5s were. And I appreciate them playing along. And that's what we do it for. So we really, really appreciate your feedback. And that's what it's all about. So again, another great top 5 here tonight. And I don't know about you fellas, but it was a very difficult week for me. But I feel like we have an even more difficult week next week.
Yes. I've already started working on that list there, and yeah, that's going to be another tough one there. But yeah, if you agree, disagree, whatever, yeah, let us know. Let us know.
I want to challenge the both of you as well. One of the things we texted about a few weeks ago was the idea of who's somebody that's not on your top 5 that next year might be on your top 5. And I've got a few that I'll wait and hold until after you guys are done and see if we have similar top 5s.
Jeremy, you roll first.
Well, I feel like depending upon how it all shakes out, maybe Brandon Hunt, if he decides to run the full season, that's who I kind of have in there. Maybe Steve Burge comes back with the lock and load machine. He's a tough cookie no matter where he goes. Those are 2 that I kind of had, like we talked about, like there's, you kind of make a big circle and then smaller circles, and then you try to connect them in the middle. But I feel like those are 2 that I, had thought about that I didn't really include here tonight that I think, maybe next year we look at them a little harder. What about you?
Maybe too, if, next year, maybe we combine the 2 heavies and we keep the lights at their own, maybe we'll something like that, maybe possibly, but
we'll see how we could have an entire conversation on lights alone. We'd be here all night. Like,
right.
And to your ball's point, like the light guys are screaming at us. What?
Yeah. What? Yeah, exactly. And I'm going to go and say, well, I'm going to say right here, you're probably going to see Colin on the list next year. Colin will make the list next year. I will go out and say that. I don't think that's
he's one of the 3 I have.
Okay.
Yeah. I had him in there.
I have 3 names that I will share with you, and it's not whose spot do they take? I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that I think if you give Cody Cheezick a 3rd year behind the wheel,
that's a good call.
I think he's got to have a way to get there. Now we're getting ready to have a potential rookie season, but the rookie season that we're potentially going to have is with a guy who I have seen drive everything to a championship, and that is Adam Bauer. So, if he brings a super stock diesel tractor to this game, like all is discussed, and he is able to run the season, maybe he's a top 5 driver. Maybe not in his infancy season, maybe not, but he's one who I think is in that group of 3. And then Colin is obviously I think he has to be on the list. I just do. Brandon, I don't think will run a points race. His farm commitments in Kentucky do not allow him to get away for the early hooks. He's usually can start his season sometime around Chapel Hill, and he can run Chapel Hill and Fort and maybe get out sometime for a Napoleon hook or around that time frame, and then a BG, and then see what happens kind of deal if he can make it to Sandwich, depending upon if he's in the field starting to harvest. But I would love to see that happen. There's a lot of like super guys I could include in my 5 as well. But I don't want to continue to just discuss that same sort of thought of the topic. But needless to say, this group of drivers, it threw all of us for a loop. And I think there was even some discussion via text to say, guys, what are we doing here and how? And then when we saw our top 5 list, it was like, okay, how do we get there?
I think we all were like, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So mark it down. Let's see how close we can get there next year with the rankings. And so, guys, let's kind of roll into one of our all-time favorite segments here, where we'll go through some of our all-time favorite super stocks, and from all different generations and all different variations of the class. Jeremy, let's get it started.
Let's go. There's Jeremy.
Oh,
My name.
Name and lights and everything.
All right, so there's one that what are you gonna say, guys? I mean, I know you probably had him on your top 5, and then you saw me, and you're like, yeah, I won't pick him because Jeremy already did. But this tractor to me sort of changed the game early on. First of all, it was a white tractor, but then the thing just ran like a scalded dog, and it did just unbelievable things back in the day. And it got my attention. I'm not going to lie. So the Conner Brothers Bad Medicine Machine is in my top 5. We'll go to our next one here. Yeah, the Seifert family. Really enjoyed the Renegade Deer when it was out. Enjoyed it quite a bit. And that was one that I enjoyed. Then, of course, the Mears is, of course, John and Russ Mears. And Just Maybe. And out of Ohio. They were really tough running internationals. And I think, fellas, this is my all-time favorite. Mining for Dollars, Kenny Meese. I love this tractor. I always did, and it ran very, very well. And I think I got one more. And what can you say about this one, guys? Big John Klug and the Red Baron. Those are my top 5.
That's a good top 5 right there. I mean, John Klug, you just remember the cowboy boots. Didn't matter what. He always had them cowboy boots on there. And
I remember. Do you guys remember the camper he had on the back of the flatbed? I remember hanging out with his son, and his son's name is escaping me right now. But I think we saw him at Bowling Green one year, and we all rode bicycles and hung out and I just remember thinking, wow, that's really cool. We got this long flatbed with a camper on top of it, and that's where they stayed. And then the tractor was on the back. Pretty neat.
I think I've got a picture of it somewhere, but I thought it still had the wheels on it too. I mean, it literally was just like they pulled that on there and went pulling, and at the end of the year they pull it off the trailer and away they went. But yeah, no, that's I wasn't sure what you were using as far as the Mining for Dollars, because Kenny had that later model that the MX series tractor that he had was real sharp too. So I loved all those tractors, and I thought he's one that you don't talk about enough. I feel like when he was very popular and on his game, that tractor was just absolutely competitive everywhere he went, especially the later model. And I think that tractor ended up going to the Gettingers, right? Went to Kane there, Chris Kane, for quite a while, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. That's the old Kwiatkowski.
Yeah.
Wild Thing. Or as Butch would say, Wild Thing, right?
That's right.
That's right.
All right, so here's my top 5 here. As far as super stocks, and we've got quite the mix here. We got Warren Rops, Iron Elk,
Oh,
Just
nice.
love those 40 for that 55 series. That just an awesome looking tractor. And I like a lot of the guys before they got away from them wheel weights and stuff, the chrome wheels. That was just an awesome looking tractor right there. And Warren Ropp out of Iowa, number 5. Number 4, that D21, Mark Gettinger out of
Nice.
Indiana. And I saw this tractor win quite a bit in New York State there when we used to get the big pulls come to town, and Mark was very, very competitive with that tractor. Just always liked the look of it. I don't know what can't beat a D21, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
And then Esden Lane, this tractor right here, I love the gold wheels. It's just some people hate them, but I just every time that tractor would come to town, that was the hot one right there. And I've told them from time to time, I says, you going to bring back the gold wheels here? But so far it hasn't happened. But yeah, I just like the look of that one. And then right here, this tractor here, the Kevin Lynn Notorious Light Super. This tractor was mean. That was a mean but a sharp looking ride there. And pictures really don't do it justice. It was one of those that just it had the look and it had the stance. And it was just a mean looking tractor.
Wow. And the stomper in the background.
Yeah, there you go. Well, that was at Bowling Green. Took that picture in 1987, I think it was there. And they had Stomper on display, and Kevin's tractor was, I think this was one of the last years they ran the light super class before they got rid of it there for quite a while. And yes, that is true. That is true. I'm getting up there. But and then right there, my all-time favorite. No matter, I picked the Brett Berg version because that was the first version, but went through the Red Rascal phase, the Ohio Rascal, the Eads had it later on. Just everybody that Coleman Wheatley, everybody that had this tractor, it was just awesome looking. They had candy apple red paint. Beautiful. And yeah, they just started there with Brett Berg and went all the way through there. But yeah, that was just a gorgeous tractor. That was that's my all-time favorite right there.
For sure. Great picks, guys.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and preface it by saying, I had about 15 that I was considering for my 5, and I'm not quite confident that the 5 that I settled on are the top 5 in my mind, but there's no doubt that the 5 that I have in here are in that hunt. So I love this tractor. There's just no question about it. And Jordan and I are a very similar age, and I come to know Jordan. This is the tractor that I really remember them by. And I sent 6, I guess it says there, but I actually probably sent Dan about 9 or 10. And there were another 5 or 6 I omitted from my list. And there have even been some I've thought about since then. So we're going to go through what I'll categorize as 6 tractors. And I won't tell you that they're number 1 or 2 or 3, but they're pretty close to that, no doubt. So this is there in the hunt. There's no doubt about it. I remember this tractor with both Rich and Jordan. I kind of remember Jordan cutting his teeth and starting to really, really get going. Driving that Silver Bullet entry, and I think there have been some really awesome iterations after that. But this one right here is one that just sticks in my mind and is indelibly there.
Yep.
And then, what can you say about Tom Dickerson and that 20 mule team? I loved this tractor and getting to watch it go up and down the track for many, many years. And I think the tractor, kind of surfaced and went from one place to the next. I think Kuntz had it at one point, and then it went from there, I believe, out to Gayton, maybe out in your old neck of the woods there, Dano, for the 20 mule team. Then we have this tractor right here, and I'll just be honest with you. In my mind and in my heart of hearts, the old D21 Alice Chalmers is just like Dan said. It's got to be one of my favorites. The first time I saw this tractor at Gordyville, I could not leave it alone. I literally just stared there, and I think Bryce Terry probably thought I was a weirdo because I literally would not leave that tractor. I just stared at it. And I think that when it comes to the track and you get a chance to look at it, the old high-strung entry is really up in my top. I absolutely love this tractor. And I remember when Rob Russell brought this 5 millionth replica out, the workhorse tractor, and certainly you just didn't see very many white internationals out there in the game. And when it came out, it stood out, and it also performed very, very well. So for me, this one was I could not leave it off my list or out of my groupings of top tractors. It was one that just historically sits in my mind because of its uniqueness, but also the cool story about the 5 millionth tractor and the fact that it performed to boot. Just talked to this gentleman right here, but that slow ride entry was one tough out, and one that I used to love to watch hook. I think Terry certainly kind of paved the way for a lot of what went on even deeper with the alcohol division. There were a few others that carried that banner of Superstock Open or Superstock Alky, and this tractor, the 7240 case known as the Slow Ride, was one that I just loved. And what can you say about this tractor? Obviously wearing the Schromick t-shirt now, but go on and win 5 championships, and do so with that DT225 ADCO out of the state of Missouri. Brian Schromick was just awesome to be out there. And as an announcer, when I started to get going, really kind of, it was cool to have an orange tractor that could go out there and compete in the other against the other tractors in the division. So obviously that gave me another aspect, and it's no secret orange is my favorite color, so it sticks out in my mind. Very first Gottman tractor that I ever got from Dad was that very tractor, and sadly enough, I sold my Gottman collection 2 years ago, and I kind of regret doing that with that tractor. I should have kept that one for sure, but those are mine, and there were many others I started to consider. I thought about Doug Roberts' Barnyard Beast, J. Fuquay's Tennessee Tracks, the diesel. I remember it just showing up at certain events and just being so cool, and that deep sort of maroon, the way the lights did it when it went down the track. It was another one that I was definitely considering. The Insanity Light Superstock from diesel days of Larry Phillips cutting his teeth in that group, and certainly enjoy watching it. And Kent McKillop's tractor was one I was thinking about there for a while as well, and there were several others, but obviously we could go on all night as well talking about our top 5s that aren't top 5 for miles.
One thing that I miss, looking through all the pictures, there is those hand painted side shields. You just don't see that anymore, and that was something that back in the day. I mean, that's what made these tractors. And you look at them, and everybody had their own style to everything out there, and that's something that really is kind of in the vinyl age here is kind of lost a lot of that. But same with the the race car world. You lost a lot of the hand painted race cars, but it seemed like everyone had their own different style on how they wanted to do things, and that's just one thing that I miss on the super stocks nowadays.
There are others that I thought about Kevin Comruss's Land Shark tractor, and there were a few others that kind of came to my mind that I just felt like maybe fit in there with the story or with what we were doing. Think about the Rooster and Danny Dean, and kind of I just remember going to Bowling Green and hearing Keith Bradley. It seemed like he said Danny Dean 100 times every session because he did so well.
Robin Blue and the Mountain Man.
That's a good one. Waverly, Tennessee.
Yes, the Mountain Man. Yes,
and you guys got Tom Dickerson. That was another one that was, that I was thinking. Tom Dickerson in the 20 mule team.
Yep,
that would be one I hear. I don't remember where in New York he was from. I want to say Olean. Is that right?
Olean.
Okay.
Olean, New York. Yep. And Tom, he's still active out there. You see him from time to time at different pulls. I know back when I was still in New York, he would come out to different ones throughout the year, and always tried to get him to get that itch back again, because I was one very, very smart man, and he when he kind of stepped away from it, it was kind of disappointing there, because he could run with the best of them, and he was good.
I think, guys, as we get ready to near the hour of our time frame here, it certainly behooves us as well to open the window for a little bit of memorial discussion, as well as horrible as it sounds this week as we lead into this discussion. Not one but two super stock names have passed this week, unfortunately.
Yeah, first we heard of Dennis Goodwin out from Farmville, Iowa, had passed away, and condolences to the family, and Matt, and still pulling out there. And here we take a look at one of Dennis's old tractors here, the pride of the farm, and had a couple of them down through the years there, and just so tough, with the outlaw circuit, but as well as the farm show. A lot of success at the farm show, depending, didn't matter what tractor he had, but he was always right there in the mix. And I say that was heard the news the other day, and that was tough
for sure. We want to give our condolences also to the Hoosier Deer.
Yeah, Tom Kasting, Franklin, Indiana. Just heard the news just this afternoon about that one. And, Tom, another guy that ran really strong for many years on the Grand National circuit. Finally got that big win in the farm show there in 1989. And that, I think, was the, talking to Tom, just a few years back, and he had talked about that big win at the farm show. And there we take a look there at Butch talking to him there after that big win there in 1989. And that, I think that was the pinnacle of the career there for Tom. He was, that Hoosier Deer, Mike Robbins would, share the driving on it, back and forth. But yeah, that was, condolences to the Kasting family as well. Hate to, we like to call it, the heavenly call of fame here. And, unfortunately, like you say, this past week, these two competitors, Dennis Goodwin and Tom Kasting, condolences to the family for sure.
I made my trips out to the Outlaws a couple of times there, in 06 and 07. I got to do a little bit of touring with them, and Dennis was very welcoming, and I certainly appreciate the warm welcome I received from him. And kind of unique that I learned a little bit more about Tom Kasting's family this past summer in 2024 at a sheep show at the Indiana State Fair. A young lady who hung the banner for grand champion in the division there was his granddaughter. And so we got to talk to him like, well, where are you from? And we started talking a little bit deeper, and come to find out, related to him, and pretty awesome there. So we hate losing our heroes, and we hate losing the guys that helped guide us here to where we are. Certainly prayers and condolences and thoughts go to the family, and hopefully they can be laid to rest here in the coming days with their families' comfort and knowing the mark that they left. So we certainly will be thinking about all of you folks.
Absolutely, for sure. Now, guys, we've got coming up here in, the next month or so, we're going to have the big one. Farley, Iowa, 300 Raceway, 50,000 to win for the classes. And starting next Sunday, this coming Sunday, actually, May 4th, going to be the selection show where the seating, everybody is going to be starting, whether you're going to be running Thursday night or Friday night. And going to have 6 shows starting this Sunday, and we'll go 4th, 5th, and 6th. And then the following week will be the 11th, 12th, and 13th. And going to have all the classes. So the first class will be 4-wheel drive, then Limited Pro, then 2-wheel drive. Then the following week will be super stock diesel trucks, then the mini rods, and then the pro stocks will be that Tuesday night. And what it'll be is going to have Melissa Graham from the NTPA is actually going to roll the balls out for Thursday and Friday. And then I believe I'm going to be picking the names. And then if you've got a teammate, you automatically your teammate will go into Friday. So it's going to be pretty interesting how this is all going to work out. So say, for instance, you got 2 vehicles, you pick one, and then your other vehicle will automatically go into Friday night is how it's going to work. And then if you've got 3 vehicles, that's going to be a little bit more tricky, because it'll be, it'll be the odd day of, so if you pick on Thursday, your other vehicle picks on Friday. So then you'll pick out of the hat for, the next one there. So it'll be, or if you pick 2 Thursdays, you automatically get a Friday. Or so I only think there's a couple vehicles on the list. I'd have to look again, but that's going to be coming up here this Sunday. So, RJ and crew been working real hard there. I know most of the classes are just about full. I know they got 4-wheel drives. They got a couple spots left in 4-wheel drive. I think mini, there's only maybe 1 or 2. And then I think 2-wheel drives are filled, and then everything else is filled. So, that's going to be interesting how that'll work. And, it's transparency is the big thing. They want to just make sure everything's on the up and up here, and, how everybody's going to pick position, because, you think about it, this isn't like any other pull. You're pulling for the big bucks, so
Can't wait.
Interesting, to see how that'll all work out. And then, of course, you've got qualifying to get into Saturday night, and then there's, lucky dogs involved. So, yeah, that's going to be looking forward to that one. That's going to be exciting. And it's all going to get kicked off here with the selection show. And then, of course, on Full Pull Live this weekend, got Columbus, Texas coming up. That's May 2nd and 3rd. And Cole Zychek and family put that pull on there with the Texas Truck and Tractor Pullers, and that will be live stream on Full Pull Live this weekend. And, they've got 2-wheel drives with the Outlaws. They've got the Outlaw mods down there and a bunch of other classes. So make sure you do tune in this weekend for that. And then the following weekend, the Hansel Sullivan Memorial Pull over there in Glencoe, Kentucky. And a great pull over there as the Sullivan family puts that on. And if you like 2-wheel drives, you better make your way to the Hansel Sullivan Pull, because, 30 to 40 of them always show up. Now, last couple of years, it's been, a little bit rainy, and some of the guys from up Wisconsin and stuff hadn't made it down. But, yeah, if you like 2-wheel drives, come on out to the Hansel Sullivan Pull, because you're going to see a bunch. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
I know I love it. I'm a 2-wheel drive guy, so I the more the merrier. But, yeah, it's always good to see.
Well, guys, another week in the books.
Yeah, for sure. Now we got to get working on that mini rod list, right? Jeremy and I kind of talked about that during this past week here, and kind of sketching a couple down here and there. But yeah, this is going to be another tough one.
It's not going to be easy.
It's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy for sure. So, all right, guys. Well, I think that'll do it here for episode number 7 here this week in pulling. And hey, get your picks in for next week. Who you think are going to be the top 5 in mini rod, and of course some of your all-time favorites as well. That's always good to hear as well. So, guys, anything more to add?
Nope. I think we're good.
So everybody have a good weekend. It's Derby weekend in Kentucky for Jeremy. So for you and you, Dan, you're starting to maybe understand what that means. But for those of us that grew up down there, it's a big deal.
For sure.
Yeah, the first year we were down here, all our neighbors and everybody were inviting us to parties, and we're like, what's going on? Is this like the Super Bowl kind of thing? And yeah, it is.
It is.
So yeah, it's definitely a big deal. So
greatest 2 minutes in sports. Absolutely, for sure.
Yep, you got it.
Well, thanks everybody for watching. And again, share your picks and share your thoughts. And thank you for liking and sharing and being a part of our podcast this week and every week. Thanks for all you do.
All right.